This is the Mental Mettle Podcast, where we explore how to forge mental toughness and resilience in every aspect of life. Welcome, I'm your host, Coach Matt Thomann. I'm an ICF certified professional coach with a background as a teacher, basketball coach, and athletic director. But my journey took a dramatic turn in 2020 when I survived both cancer and a stroke. Those experiences shaped my mission, help others grow stronger in every facet of life. Today, I work with athletes, coaches, educators, and anyone who believes that positive mental health is both achievable and a personal responsibility. This podcast is dedicated to helping listeners develop a positive version of toughness, one rooted in resilience, focus, and growth. Whether you're looking to excel on the field, in the classroom, or in life, this is your space to learn, grow, and take action. Join me on this journey, and together, let's forge your mettle. Welcome back to the Mental Mettle Podcast. I am your host, Coach Matt Thomann, and I am thrilled to death you're joining me today. I can't thank you enough. I can't have a show without listeners, watchers, people that follow me wherever you get your podcasts or tune into YouTube. I can't thank you enough for doing it. And today's episode is one that's really important to me. We're going to have a conversation around a new resource that I've created called the Resilient Parents Playbook. And the reason for creating this resource is that I've spent a lot of time, and I say a lot of time, I've been working at this job as a mental performance coach, mostly for athletes. The last 4.5 years, I started in October of 20, and working with athletes individually, getting into schools, working with educators, working with coaches, all with the goal of helping athletes develop more mental toughness and use athletics in the way I think athletics need to be used, not to chase scholarships, not to win championships. It's great if you can get that, and if that's something you get, that's fantastic. But most athletes don't get scholarships, don't win state championships. That doesn't mean that athletics is not good for them or it's not useful for them. It's quite the opposite. I think that the point of athletics is to get kids facing adversity in a way that is chasing something they love. So when you mix the adversity with something they enjoy to do, it makes them want to do well. And that is it's such a metaphor, such a preparation for life, because that's the way life works. We have a job that we want to keep, a family that we want to keep together, all these relationships and things that we try to do that were really important, that are important to us, but they also come with adversity. And if you can do that in athletics when you're young, then you've got all these tools and abilities to be able to do that in life. And I think that is the entire point of athletics, to be able to face adversity in a powerful way, in a way that you don't just run away from the adversity or break down in the adversity, but actually enjoy the adversity and say, hey, this is hard. I know it's going to be hard, but that's okay, because everything I want is on the other side of hard. Discomfort is how we get success and how we get growth. And athletics are the great way to do that. And you can listen to me on almost every podcast. I talk about that. But as I was going in and starting to work with this, with individuals, I started working with athletes, doing calls at home, sitting in this spot right here, working with athletes on mental performance coaching. I'm an ICF certified coach, so I've got a lot of training in coaching, and I work with the individual athletes. And then I started to go into schools and developed my Ember to Inferno program, which is for the coaches. So take the same thing I'm working with the athletes, and I start preaching it to the coaches. And then if the coaches can hear it and the athlete can hear it, that's both are kind of speaking the same language and trying to have the same idea around mental toughness and around adversity. And I've known for a long time that there's a third piece of that, and that is the parent. And I haven't done, it's hard to reach the parents because they want to invest in their kids, and they want to, I don't want to say complain, but think about the coaches, and they want to have their coaches be good, and put their kids on teams with the right coaches. And I get all that. I've been there and I've done it. But there is a big piece of this in the fact that how the parents work with their athletes every day, and the conversations they have and the relationship they have with them makes a huge difference in the mental toughness of the athlete. And, a parent isn't going to sign up for, coaching with me. They're going to sign up with their kid to sign up with them. And I agree with that. The kids really need it. The athletes really need it. And I'm not really, again, parents aren't going to sign up for some coaching on how they can work with their athlete better, or their kid better, and have a better relationship. I have worked with parents to do that. I have worked with a few dads, and we talk about several things, but it's very few. And I understand that. So rather than try to create some advertising to get people to parents to come do this, I decided, why not just create a free resource? And so I've created this free resource for parents called the Resilient Parents Playbook. It's a free email course, and that's what we're going to be talking about today, is some of the content from there. So as you listen to this, pay attention, hear little clips and say, I like this. I want to learn more about this. Know that the whole point is, it's going to be in the show notes. It's going to be all over my socials. Signing up for this Resilient Parents Playbook it's a free resource, again, to give you some ideas. Now, I'm not telling you I know everything and everything I say is right, but there's a lot of good stuff in here, and probably some things that go against what we do normally. And before we get into this, I want to make sure that you understand that I am not calling parents the villain in this. Parents are not the villain, but parents can definitely be the lever that moves things in the right direction. The parents have such a great responsibility to help their kids grow when it comes to athletics. I can spend months building an athlete's confidence, but if the car ride home is tearing it down, guess which voice wins? It's not the one they hear on Zoom calls with me once every couple of weeks. It's the one they hear at dinner, or the one they hear in the minivan. It's just, I can't compete with that, and I shouldn't. I shouldn't try to be overcoming the point, or the voice of the parent. The voice of the parent should be what they listen to. And I'm not telling you what you're doing is wrong, but I'm telling you that there are some things that we all do as parents that kind of go against some of the psychology and some of the research on the best way to have your kids deal with adversity. And we're not trying to do it wrong, but I'm just telling you there is a good way to do it. And again, I'm coming at you from a unique perspective, and there's some research, or there's some some credibility here with me. Yeah, I've got a couple kids, and I've lived through this and done this, and I've done some things right. I've done some things wrong, but I've also got a lot of credibility when it comes to this positive psychology ideas that I'm preaching now. I would tell you that I tell this to everybody that I work with when it comes to the positive psychology. None of this is theoretical to me. I struggled after my cancer, after my stroke, and some anxiety that I had, and this sort of work with positive psychology and being coached and working this idea through therapy and stuff, like some ideas like that, it has made a huge difference in the way I see the world and how I attack adversity, and how when things are difficult. So I've got a lot of personal experience there, but then I've also gone on and gained my International Coaching Federation. I'm a professional coach. I've done hundreds and hundreds of hours working with athletes and coaches on this very stuff. So very researched, very experienced. And so when I put this stuff together, know that it's coming from a good place. It's a well-researched place, and it's a place that I've seen a lot of success, quite honestly. And we just have to remember that your
when we're trying to create the mental skills, and you'll hear me talk about this all the time, there's 3 skills that we need to develop. The physical skills, they need to get in the weight room, bigger, faster, stronger. The game skills, they get in, get shots up, get in the cage, work on their swing, serve volleyballs, all these things. We work on these game skills. They have to have the physical skills, the game skills. They've got to have the mental skills as well. And that's something we don't spend a lot of time on. And quite honestly, some of the times we do it wrong. So your kids' mental skills, your athlete's mental game is on display when they play a game, but it is developed in your kitchen, in your minivan. It's developed in the way you talk to them after a game, good or bad. That's where it's developed. It gets on display when they play, but it's developed in a much slower, methodical way. You have to be intentional with how you develop that. Okay. Again, this is not a parent blaming episode. This is a parent empowering episode, because like it or not, you are the most powerful mental performance coach that your athlete comes in contact with. You have that sort of responsibility, that sort of power. It's the Spider-Man line, with great power comes great responsibility. So you need all the help you can get. Have a listen to this podcast, check out my resource, use what you want, but don't just assume that the things that you're doing are the right way to do it, because learn from a lot of the research, learn from a lot of people that have done it before, and people that have seen the success in their athletes. So join me. I'm going to talk about some of the mistakes we make as parents, some of the ways that we can change that, and some of the ways that we can do it differently. It's going to be a great episode, all about the Resilient Parents Playbook. Can't wait to tell you more about it. Okay, first things first, when I start talking about this Resilient Parents Playbook, it is non-negotiable. And I don't mean it's non-negotiable. You have to listen to or you have to read my thing. What I mean is, whether or not you as the parent is part of your athlete's mental game and their mental toughness is non-negotiable. You are a huge piece of their mental toughness. The athletes spend far more time with parents than they do with their coaches and the mental coaches, the strength coaches. So how you handle adversity, how you respond to adversity, how you talk around adversity, the body language you have around adversity, it is a huge piece of it. So it's non-negotiable. You are a part of it. That's why it's so important for you to see yourself as a lever to move it forward, not a villain, as somebody that's going to break it down, because it can go both ways. And the way that you speak, or the way that you talk around athletics, your voice becomes the inner voice of your athlete. And inner voice is a huge part of psychology when it comes to mental toughness. So the sort of voice you're using towards your athlete, or toward the coaches, or towards, heaven forbid, the officials, becomes the inner voice of your athletes. I do a lot of work with inner voice with athletes, and I'm telling you, it makes a huge difference. And I hear, and it's not even me hearing it, I ask a lot of athletes where their inner voice, and specifically their negative inner voice, comes from. And a lot of times they just tell me straight up, it comes from a parent. And it shouldn't be that way. It doesn't have to be that way. Some of the best coaching that I've done, and some of the coaching done by other coaches, even their sport specific coaches, it just gets canceled out by home dynamics. Coaches shape skills, but parents shape stories. And it's the story in your kid's head that decides how they handle pressure. So the story they use usually comes from how adversity is handled in the home in different ways, and not just athletics, but in a lot of ways. So parents really shape those stories in the way that kids respond to the things that happen to them. And it's not easy to do. Not necessarily. It can be easy, but we have to be intentional with it. That's a better way. It doesn't have to be hard to do, but it does have to be intentional. Just the way you respond, the way you talk around it, and it's important because I can give your athlete elite tools, but if at home they're hearing things like, "What happened to you out there? You're doing this wrong. What's wrong with you?" If they hear these things after every game, the tools that I'm teaching, they don't stand a chance. And quite honestly, it's they shouldn't stand a chance. Uh, the things that I say should be well below what the things that your kid, your athlete is hearing from you. I want it to be that way. I'm not trying to take in place of it. Your coach, your basketball coach, volleyball coach shouldn't take the place of you, but it should work together. And we can't have it work against each other because this really hurts them. It becomes a lot of problems. We're going to talk about some of the ways that we make this a problem here. Um, you have to be intentional about it. If you want a mentally tough athlete, you cannot outsource that job completely to somebody like me or to the basketball coach. You are either reinforcing the work or you're quietly undoing it. And it's so much better if you as the parent is working in lockstep with a mental coach like me or their sports specific coach. When we are in lockstep working these things together, it is so much better for the athlete. We get such a better progress, so much better product. It's just something we want. So be thinking about this as we move forward and some of the mistakes that we talk about. I put it as mistakes because that's kind of the way we think. I talk about this all the time, that our brains look for mistakes and problems, and that's an issue we have to deal with. But so I put these out here as mistakes that we make as parents. And I say that so that we recognize them and say, "Oh, I do this." But it's not just about what you did wrong. It's about, or what we do wrong. It's what we can do to change it. So we'll use the word mistakes to identify some of the things that we do wrong, but then also follow it up with what could we do differently. Okay, so think about this when I talk about mistakes. Mistake number 1 is praising results, not effort and attitude. Yes, what I'm saying is you can't praise wins. At least you can't praise wins over effort and attitude. I know how hard this is. The entire point of athletics, we think and we believe, and what society tells us, the entire point of athletics is to win games. We have games on the schedule. We have, championships to win. We drive 3 hours on a Saturday for a travel game, a travel tournament. We would much rather come home with trophies and win the tournament than go 0-3. Understand that, believe that, and I feel better when we win than we lose. But we cannot have that. We cannot have our focus on winning to be number 1. And by that, when I say our focus, mean your praise towards your athlete cannot be about winning more than it is effort and attitude. It is very difficult. That's what I told you. It's like we have to be very intentional. This is one of these very intentional things. And the reason this has to be very intentional, very deliberate, is because it becomes something kids notice very easily in our language, in our body language, and even our actions. If you win, we'll go get ice cream. Like we've done this, right? Like you win, we'll go get ice cream, or we'll go this. Well, we didn't win, so we're not going to go get ice cream. It's this consequential thing, and it doesn't have to be that obvious. But even again, your body language, your words, all these things. And what it does is it helps an athlete start to believe that I am valuable when I perform well, or even worse, I'm valuable when I win. And that's it. There's so much work on this. There's a great book called Mindset by Carol Dweck. This gets into growth mindset, just a little bit of sidebar here. And she's done so much work on this, and this becomes a problem all the way down into kids in not even athletics, but in education, in the sense that we praise the A and not the effort. Well, kids come into school with different abilities and different backgrounds and different home lives. And, you get a first grader that had parents that read to them every day, did math with them every day, went to a good preschool, did a lot of things. And that A is easy for them, right? They've already done this at home. It's easy. It's no problem. So they get A's, no problem. It's not even hard. But we praise them for getting that A. And they start to believe, well, I'm valuable when I get an A, versus the kid who this is the first time they've seen it. It's difficult for them, had a rough home life, and this is really, really hard for them. And they might put in twice as much effort as this other kid and get a B or a C, and they are thinking that they are less because of that. And what happens is if we start to praise the result and not the effort, then we get less effort. So we are creating a situation where they don't think effort is valuable, just the result. And that's a problem. When we do this, and from an athletic standpoint, and for any standpoint, could be musical, could be educational, could be athletic, doesn't matter. What it does, it starts to lead to this. It's a long road, but it's very understandable. It starts to lead to anxiety and fear of failure, because I'm only going to get praised if I win, if I do well, if I get that A, if we win this game, if I do well in my musical performance. We start to see fear of failure over the outcome. That leads to anxiety, all because of how we respond as the parents and as the adults in the room whenever it comes. So it sounds like, when you say great win, it sounds when we say great win, it sounds supportive. It is. We want to say great win. But when we do it in the wrong way, what your child often hears is, you're only lovable when you produce. That is a recipe for anxiety. Of course, we're going to say great win, but there's a different way to do it. And we can't just have that great attitude and be on top of the world when they win. Kids are going to see that. They're going to notice that, going to say the difference. So the antidote, or the change for, this mistake number one is when we praise results and not effort and attitude, is to change our praise. And I don't even know if I want to use the word praise, but our conversations need to be around more controllable things. And your praise and your conversation needs to be only controllables only. Think about the things that your athlete can control, and those are the things that you talk about around the dinner table. Those are the things that you talk about on the ride home. And when we start talking about this list, it's an exercise I do with every single athlete I do, every single player I do, every single coach I do, everything. We have a conversation, an honest to God conversation around what we can control and what we cannot. And there's so many things. And what we always do is we come up with this enormous list of things that we can't control. Your kid can't control refs. They can't control opponents. They can't control teammates. They can't control the coaches, but they can control their own effort and attitude. When you praise what they can't control, you wire them for anxiety and panic. When we praise what we can control, you're giving them confidence, because I can always control my effort and attitude. So when we think about having a game, winning a game, losing a game, or just whenever any time they play, the rule needs to be, I'm going to lead with controllables. I loved your hustle. I loved your communication. I loved your attitude. Oh, and by the way, nice win. The result becomes the footnote, not the headline. Because you can have that same conversation. I love your hustle. I love your communication. I love your attitude, even when they lose. So it can be, hey, I loved your hustle. I loved your communication. Keep at it. Keep working. You'll get the win next time. Their controllables and things that they can control, again, are the headline, not the footnote. And a lot of times if we just do it the other way, if we only talk, you say, well, I always talk about, I loved your hustle out there. Well, a lot of times what we say is that's the only time we say that is when they lose. Well, they pick up on that and they notice, well, they only tell me they love my hustle when I win, and they only tell me they love my hustle and my communication when we lose, because obviously they can't say good win. That's a big change, but we need to make that change to be able to say, no, my hustle, my communication, my attitude are what they say every time. Then we talk about the win. It's huge. And then that can also be a conversation, because we can also have wins, games that we win where they actually coasted. Don't lie about that. You can say, hey, you coasted today. You didn't really work very hard. I know you got the win, but your effort just wasn't there. Kids know when they mail it in. Kids know when they didn't do what they wanted to. By doing this, you're gonna fake. If you fake this praise, you're not gonna build confidence. It kills your credibility. So your kid knows how they played, what the effort was, what they did. You have to be honest with that. So that's that first mistake, is only praising the win or only praising the results. We can't do that. We got to praise, and we got to have our conversations be around controllables. All right, so let's talk about mistake number 2 that we make. And the second mistake I talk about on the Resilient Parents Playbook, and that is just how we use negative motivation, or just saying things like toughen up, get tougher. They're things that are very easy to do. That negative motivation, that you just need to be tougher and kind of really getting on kids. We see it as criticism, and we see it as preparation for the quote unquote real world. I'll be honest. I see parents and I see coaches treat players in a way that are fireable offenses in most workplaces. Now, there are some workplaces, and we can talk about this, it's not like that. But there are so many situations where a parent or a coach is really calling it tough criticism on a kid in a way that is not acceptable in the quote unquote real world. So sometimes I wonder what we think we are preparing them for. Now, I'm all for, and I'm going to get into this, that we can't make people that are soft, but there's a way to do it and a way not to do it. And when we do it the wrong way and we use this negative motivation, we start to feed the negative wolf. You'll hear me talk about the 2 wolves all the time. It's a great parable. If you haven't read it, read the 2 wolves. Talked about it on a couple podcasts. We feed that negative wolf. We feed that fight or flight. We feed that anxiety. We feed that worry. And it becomes, left unchecked, it can become some serious mental health problems. And that internal voice from the criticism that they hear from a parent starts to create their own inner voice, and that inner voice that can lead to anxiety, depression, and even worse. So that voice of the parent can become the internal voice of the parent, of the kid, and it's such a problem, and I see it all the time. We have to be really careful about it. So when we think about the idea of just telling kids, oh, you need to just toughen up. Toughen up isn't really coaching. It's kind of a confession. What it usually means is, I don't really know how to help you handle this stress, so I'm kind of going to shame you in a little. I'm going to call you soft. And maybe if I tell you you're soft, long enough and loud enough, you'll get stronger. That's the idea. Where we say, hey, if I just say, hey, you need to be tougher, maybe they do need to be tougher, but you just constantly saying they need to be tougher doesn't help them get tougher. It actually, a lot of times, makes it worse. Doesn't give them any tool to move forward. And I think about this, again, let's think about this in the quote unquote real world. You run into somebody at work, a coworker, or just somebody you run into in just your normal daily life, and they just, for whatever reason, there's a little bit of an altercation, there's some drama, and they just tell you you're soft, you're not good enough, and you can't do this or whatever. We get very upset as adults. We don't handle it well. And quite honestly, we start to understand when we get older that they're doing this not because of how they see us, but they usually have some sort of deep-seated issue, right? So they're defensive. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to handle the situation, so they take it out on somebody else. And quite honestly, as parents, we a lot of times do that. We get really upset when our kid doesn't do well. They're not being tough. So our only response is to just yell at them to toughen up and to take it out on them. It's a very defensive posture, very defensive words, and we need to do better. We need to find a way to do that better. And there is a way to do that. And that's what we're going to work on and try to be, but you have to be intentional because it's our natural inclination. Quite honestly, your kid does not need another critic. They already have an inner critic that is really loud and really obnoxious. It may be an inner critic that already came from them listening to you sometimes, or listening to a coach, or listening to social media. It's there. The inner critic is there. And quite honestly, we're so wired as humans to find negative. We know the mistakes. I mean, the score and the game shows us that. We lose, we know we make some mistakes. When we lose playing time as an athlete and somebody takes our spot, we know we're not doing well. The rules show us when we're doing things wrong. And whether or not shots go in or whether or not we hit the ball, those show some of our mistakes. And now with every game thrown on video, kids have ample opportunity to look back and see, oh, look at all these mistakes I made. They don't necessarily need another critic. They need somebody to give them ways to move forward. I know the world is tough, and you need to be tough in the world to be able to make it. But beating your kid up emotionally at home doesn't make them tougher out there. It just means that they're fighting battles on two fronts. The world's tough out there, and the world's tough at home. Now, it doesn't mean that we put our head in the sand and we ignore things. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm just telling you, athletics is hard enough. Educational situations are hard enough. The relationship system or problems they have out there are hard enough. Kids have enough adversity out there to test them. I promise you, there's enough adversity out there. Kids don't necessarily need more adversity. They need help getting through the adversity that is already there. The adversity exists. They need help getting through that adversity. And as a parent, that needs to be one of your primary jobs. So when we talk about developing what I call positive toughness, we need to understand that positive toughness isn't soft. It's not creating soft people. Positive toughness is saying, okay, that was a tough game. Let's figure out what we did wrong so we can do it better next time, rather than just saying, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with you? You're not tough enough. Rather than just getting upset about what went wrong, we talk about, yes, this didn't go well. What can I do differently next time? That's what it is. It's not ignoring the negatives. It's not the ostrich with the head in the sand. It's recognizing some of the issues, recognizing the adversity, but knowing that you have a plan to get better, which leads us back to the first one when praising the controllables, right? So we talk about, here's what I did wrong. What can I control when this happened, possibly through an uncontrollable? Well, what's my response? What's my controllable response? What am I going to do in my attitude, my effort to do better? Mental toughness is not about never breaking and always being tough and always handling things right. Mental toughness isn't about not breaking. It's about how well you recover. Stop obsessing over the mistake and the loss and start asking, what's your next move? And being excited about moving forward in that adversity. You'll see it. The Mental Mettle Podcast and my business, Mental Mettle Coaching, the word metal, it's all based around this idea of positive toughness. Mettle is a person's ability to face adversity in a spirited and resilient way. Spirited means enthusiastic. Resilient means coming back, snapping to, figuring out what to do next. It's not about negativity. It's about positivity in a negative situation. This adversity is hard. This adversity is difficult. I am enthusiastic about my ability to be resilient and to move forward. That's in the entire point. All right. So as kids face adversity, as kids go through athletics and have difficult situations, don't be so worried about criticizing them as helping them move forward. Help them to recognize what they can do and move forward and be excited about that probability or that possibility. Okay. Don't be so worried about the mistake or the loss that was created from that mistake. But what can we do next? That positive toughness, that mettle, that's what we need to develop. So mistake number 3 of the Resilient Parents Playbook is when we teach kids to fight stress or ignore stress instead of just learning how to manage stress. It kind of leans back into the last mistake we make where we talk about, toughen up. And we believe that somehow we believe that if stress or anxiety exists, that means we're not tough. That could not be further from the truth. To be able to see anxiety and stress and recognize for what it is and to deal with it in a positive way, that is so much tougher than just saying, I'm just going to ignore it or say it doesn't exist. When we just tell them to push through it or ignore it, it can leave that stress stuck in the body. And do not scoff at this. It becomes mental health issues become serious physical health issues. I get really upset. I'm in the mental health performance. I am in the mental health profession, working with people, helping deal with their mental health. And I don't like the term mental health because I don't think there should be a difference between mental health and physical health because they are so much more connected than we think. And when we ignore mental health, it becomes physical health, and physical health can become mental health. So when we ignore these things or think they're not real things, it shows up in almost every body system you can imagine. Shows signs of anxiety and stress when it's not handled well. And it gets into what I call a negative spiral. That anxiety becomes stomach aches, tight shoulders, sleep issues, all these things. And then that becomes something else to worry about. And the less sleep we have, the less we feel healthy, the worse our anxiety and stress gets. And then it starts, again, this negative spiral and things get worse. Kids need actual tools to get out of these cycles, not just ignore them and make it worse. So when your kid says, say, my stomach hurts before the games, that's not drama. That's their nervous system screaming and kind of saying, I don't know how to handle this. I don't know what this is. And it's scary. We can't just say, toughen up. You're being a baby. We don't get to choose what is trauma or stressful for another individual. You may wish that, okay, this game is not a big deal, or going up to the plate or getting this free throw is not that big a deal. They shouldn't be stressed about it. You don't get to choose that. Now, we can talk all day about why kids, and it seems to be the truth, why situations trigger them more than it used to. That's not something I can fix. It's cultural, social media, it's all sorts of things. But the fact that it exists means it's something we have to deal with. We have to acknowledge it. And the good news is, once we start to acknowledge it and deal with it, we can move forward and help your kid get better at stuff. The things that bothers them when at the beginning won't at the end when we start doing these things. But if we just ignore them, it's not going to get better. And we see that all the time because we tell kids and athletes and young people, just ignore it all the time. Toughen up. You're not tough. You're just being a baby. You just need to get tougher. It doesn't fix it. It's gotten worse. So we have to actually do something. So ignorance of a situation or denying a situation is not toughness. It's not at all. It's the opposite. It's ignoring it and thinking it'll get better, and it won't. So when your kid says, hey, my stomach hurts or my chest hurts or my shoulders hurt or I'm not sleeping well for a game, recognize it, understand something about it, and we'll be able to do something about it, because just telling them to shake it off doesn't remove the stress. It just buries it deeper into their muscles, into their gut, into their sleep. This is an unbelievably personal thing for me, because this is something that I was not good at when I started to have anxiety about the pandemic, and then anxiety about my cancer, and some struggles I was having during the pandemic at work and at home, just with health issues, not just me, but others. That started to affect my anxiety a lot, where I couldn't sleep. And I just kept ignoring it and saying, oh, toughen up, just, you'll be fine. And it just kept getting worse and worse and worse, which in my case, that anxiety became insomnia. That insomnia became more anxiety. And that was a huge trigger in me eventually having an ischemic stroke. That's not just a cautionary tale to scare you. It's a true thing. Like, you can't just ignore this mental stress that becomes physical stress and just say, oh, shake it off, you'll be fine. You have to do something with it. Real toughness is not just white knuckling through anxiety. It's about having tools to bring your body back from panic to the present. Anxiety and worry mean you are human. We all deal with it from different things created. And again, we can talk all day about what it takes to trigger it. And it took a lot to trigger mine, but once it was there, I didn't know how to get out of it. Real toughness is recognizing it and doing something with it and getting better at it and having a tool to deal with it. So if you learn to teach your kids some box breathing or some mindfulness exercises, you're giving them a lifelong anxiety fighting tool. Stress that causes anxiety does not end after athletics. Quite honestly, it begins. So telling them don't be nervous and don't be anxious doesn't give them anything. We have to give them tools to deal with it. And there are so many good tools to be able to do that. Finding ways to do that. Some of the breath work exercises and some of the mindfulness exercises are so useful. And there's so many ways out there. You don't need me. You can go find these things. They're all useful. So your child doesn't necessarily need to be less sensitive, and your child doesn't need to be less of a baby, right? We need to help them get better at handling what they're feeling and dealing with it. That, quite honestly, takes a lot of courage to say, here's an issue I have. How can I deal with it? When we start to do that, when we start to learn about these feelings and how to deal with that stress, we're able to take that kid that said, oh, my stomach is upset, I'm really anxious. We're able to take that and reframe it. The difference between anxiety and excitement before a game or before an at-bat or before some free throws or before serving, there's not a lot of difference between anxiety and excitement. A lot of times it's just reframing it in our mind, but you can't do that if you're in fight or flight. The athlete needs to be able to have a tool to recognize it, deal with it, and say, yeah, there's a little bit of empty pit in my stomach. They can reframe that and say, that's not anxiety, that's excitement. That's something I can do something with. I'm kind of excited about me in this game and in this moment. And that is powerful. Okay. That is toughness, to be able to say that, yes, my body is doing this, but that's okay. I'm going to handle that. I'm going to handle that stress in a positive way. That is something they'll move forward with forever. So we've got to be able to do that and we got to quit making that mistake of just telling kids to fight the stress or ignore the stress and say, no, stress exists. Let's manage it. Let's deal with it. And you're just such a more powerful individual if you're able to do that. Mistake number 4 is probably my favorite. When I say my favorite, it's my least favorite. It's the one I think that can make some of the most damage. And that is the negative car ride home, or having this conversation, if not the car ride, then the discussion around the dinner table after a game, especially a loss, that is very problem focused. It is a car ride that is essentially a debrief of everything that went wrong. It is very negative based. It is a scan for errors, a scan for problems that over time starts to develop anxious and hypercritical kids, when we really ought to be trying to create kids that are not mistake collectors, but opportunity finders. And it is such a common problem. And the best way that I can explain that is just an analogy for yourself. Do you like performance reviews in your job, especially when they tend to be negative? If your car ride home feels like a performance review for your kid, they're eventually going to not only hate the ride home, but hate the game itself, because it's going to signify problems. It's going to be a place where they see failures and see problems and see that they're not living up to expectations. It's universal. We know this. Almost everyone feels that way about an evaluation, or we have a boss that is a micromanager that looks over our shoulders and points out mistakes before we even get a chance to rectify them, change our behavior. We can find that in our own lives, in our jobs. We make mistakes, we see the consequences, and we say, "Oh, I don't want to do that again." We hate it when somebody tells us they know better and notices our mistakes before we even have a chance to learn on our own. And that's what's happening a lot of time with these negative car rides home. If you spend the drive home every time replaying mistakes and replaying errors and replaying things they need to do better, you're not helping them improve as much as you are teaching their brain to scan for failure and to look for problems. That makes them super hyper aware of problems and helps them have fear that these things are going to happen and cause these negative consequences. I understand it. I get it. Negativity is very easy. It is our default as human beings. We are biologically wired to seek out problems because this helps us survive. It keeps us alive, and we see problems, things that could kill us. It's a good thing, but this lens does not have to be applied to youth athletics. It is a different situation, and we need to change our lens, because that's not the point. So an example that I've used before that people talk about, the idea of a compliment sandwich is a misnomer. So if I tell you I'm giving you a bologna sandwich, you know it's a sandwich with bologna in the middle and it's got bread around it. The compliment sandwich, we call it that because a compliment sandwich is when we say, oh, there's a compliment, then something they did wrong, and then a compliment. Well, that's a negative sandwich, right? When we name a sandwich, we talk about what's in the middle. Trust me, your kid, if you use this all the time, they don't listen until they hear the but. Oh, you played great today, but you really didn't throw well in the eighth inning, and you really made a mistake on that pitch. Oh, but keep at it. You're a hard worker. Okay, so we've got the compliments before and after, but the meat is what they did wrong. Your kid is smart enough to recognize what's going on. So what's actually a compliment sandwich is actually a complaint sandwich. I don't know how that term got around. I get it, but it's misnamed, and that's not true. So we have to start thinking about how we need to do things differently and learning to find positives. Trust me, I if you're arguing with me, if you're thinking I've heard it all, and I've done it, I've done the opposite. The idea that, well, if we don't point out errors, they'll never get better, and oh, you're just being soft, and you're just saying, when you just say the positives, that's like everybody gets a trophy and nobody gets better, and this is just not true. uh, the truth contains positive and negative, and we spend way too much time talking about the negatives and not nearly enough positive, and partly because that's the way we're wired. So we have to really start to train our brains to look at things differently and to start finding the positives, which are there. I guarantee it. Even on the worst loss, they are there. You have to find these positives. One of the best exercises you can do is something called the three good things. The three good things, to me, is the antidote to the negative car ride. The three good things in this application is the parent, the player, everybody in the car gets to talk about three good things that happened that day at the game. Go as small as you need, and then that's our conversation. We don't talk about the outcome, we don't talk about the mistakes, we talk about three things that went well, and it becomes a ritual that is going to change how your kid feels about not only the car ride but playing the game. I know it feels like it's small, but it's starting to rewire their brains, which is what we want. We want them to look for positivity. I promise you, they're still going to make mistakes. They're still going to notice their mistakes. They're still going to improve on their mistakes. But we need to spend some time as the parents rewiring their brain. Your kid already knows what they did wrong. I promise. They are starving for someone to tell me what has gone right and to be proud of them for what they're improving on. I guarantee you it'll start making a difference. So spend some time doing that three good things. And if you really want to get good at the three good things, make sure you can't say the same thing over and over again. Don't do the repeats. Don't say the same thing. We like our uniforms, and we say that every day. Well, that's cheating. You're not really rewiring your brains. If you don't do repeats, then you constantly have to look for new things. So start practicing this three good things. It's a great thing to do in the car ride or after every game, but it's a really good thing for every parent and every adult to do in your own life. Just start rewiring your brains. Have those positive conversations after the game. Trust me, it's going to make a lot of difference. So the fifth mistake I see parents make, and this is a really common one, again, I'm saying all these things knowing that I've done all of them. But the fifth mistake I see is that parents try to be a parent and a coach. And in youth athletics, again, a lot of times people end up being both, like literally being both, as in we get a lot of dad coaches, mom coaches. And I understand that, and I'm not saying anything against that necessarily, but it does come with problems. But I would say that as the kid gets older, we have to
we have to clearly define our role as the parent. And you have to understand, as your kid gets older, as your athlete gets older, your parent advice is filtered through so much emotion, so much history, and so much power dynamics, so much biology. It takes your message, when you filter through all those things, your message just doesn't land like you want it to. And you probably understand this. The same concept that you say, preach, suggest with your athlete, when it gets told by somebody else on the outside, a coach of some sort, it lands instantly. And that can be frustrating, but it's a real thing. And anytime that I say that we kind of know what a problem is, then we have to just address it or just go with it. You're not going to outfight that. And I think that uh, understanding that this is a thing and this is a situation thing, that you have all your advice goes through this parent filter, like, understand that and know that it's just not going to land like it will from a coach. And even worse is if you have a conflicting message between the thing that you say and the coach thinks. You're not going to agree with every coach that your athlete has. I guarantee it. I know you're not. It's just the way it goes. But understand, this goes back to the uncontrollables. That coach, especially if you're at a public institution, high school, you can't just get up and leave a program, which I don't think is the answer to anything really, very, very rarely. How the coach operates and the coaching staff operates is an uncontrollable situation. And we go back to what I said before, that if you complain and you talk about uncontrollables, that causes all sort of anxiety, a little bit of apathy in your kids. But more than that, in this situation, if your message conflicts with the message of a parent and a coach, this can equal paralysis in your kid because they don't know what to do. And we get this, a lot of time coaches call this paralysis by analysis. And something's going to happen in a game and they think, especially if it's, oh, should I do this or should I do what the coach says? And that leads to indecision. And indecision in sports it's the worst, right? A lot of times we would be so much better if we just made a mistake and made a decision and went forward with it. That's better than doing nothing. Happens all the time. And I'll be honest, you might be right. You might be absolutely right about what your kid needs to hear. And they are still just not going to listen to you and take it from you. That's not failure. That's biology. That's family dynamics. It just is what it is. And you can't let your ego get in the way of that. So at times, when you coach and parent at the same time, you are making your child choose and trying to choose between the coach, the parent, and they have to go into protection mode. Do I protect my game? Do I protect the outcome? Do I protect my relationship with my mom or dad? Do I protect relationship with my coach? And it's not a good place to be when they're not playing the game, not learning, not growing. They're in protection mode. What do I want to protect? And hopefully they want to protect the relationship with you, but we shouldn't make it to that. We don't want to make them we don't want to put them in that situation because it's really tough. And it's just not where we want to be with this. So I think that we have to set our ego aside a little bit and allow a coach to coach. Right or wrong, allow them to coach. Now, I think that you can give some advice, you can give some ideas. Of course, we're talking about moving the needle. I talk about this all the time. We just don't want to overdo it. I do think that some ideas, sometimes some suggestions from a parent is a good idea because then when they hear it from somebody else, maybe it'll land a little bit better. But you just have to understand that it's not happening. It's not going to happen as fast or as efficient as you want it to. Your kids are listening to you. They just not going to act on it in the manner or the speed that you want. So you have to be very careful with it. So I would say worry less about being a coach, and certainly do not cause conflict between you and your coach and the team and your athlete. That is a recipe for disaster. It happens all the time. Then we get into all sorts of other problems. And it's something we want to recognize your role as the parent, be super supportive, do those things I talked about, like praise the controllables, have the good, positive conversations around the dinner table and on the ride home, and spend less time worrying about the specifics of the game and all the details. Give your kid a break is really what we're doing. Don't make the conflict more. Don't make them have to protect a situation. Give them a break a little bit and understand that it is a game, okay? And we want to allow them to learn at their own pace and actually trust a coach. There's levels of coaches. There's no doubt some are better than others, but don't have your ego as your parent so big that you can't believe that somebody else might have some ideas for your coach or for your player, and know that they're going to have some ideas that land with your kid more than the ideas that you have just because of who you are. Love your kid, but that doesn't mean they have to listen to you. It doesn't work like we want it to. So that's the mistake number 5, is trying to be that parent and the coach at the same time. It's a difficult place, and we just don't want to do that, create that for our athletes. So I've been talking about these 5 mistakes and also some of the ways that we can combat them. And I want to dive into the science a little bit, because I think this is everything I do. And I mentioned this is from experience, from being a coach, from being a parent, and from using some of these concepts on myself. But it's not just ideas. These are very well-researched thoughts. There's a lot of science behind this and a lot of brain science behind it. And everything that I talk about here, you may not know about it, but we're talking about the idea of neuroplasticity. And neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to kind of reorganize synaptic connections in response to learning and experience and things like that. And it doesn't always happen. It's always happening. Okay. Your brain is always rewiring to create an efficient way to work in the world. And your athlete and your kid and everybody does this. The problem is it doesn't always work and create what we would deem positive pathways. A lot of times it's creating pathways that turn into negative attributes like anxiety and worry and fear. So again, going back to, like, if we focus too much on the uncontrollables, well, that's going to create a brain that is fearful about all the things that could go wrong. And same with when we're looking at the negatives and the mistakes that we make. Well, we're going to get fearful for the mistakes, and we're going to look for problems, and your brain's going to get really, really good at that. Everything that I've talked about to kind of combat these 5 mistakes is all about neuroplasticity and rewiring the brain. Now, the downside is, and it works, our brains work the same. It's all great. The problem is it doesn't work as fast as we want it to. We're talking months, 2, 3, 4 months, depending on how good you are at it and how you stick with it. You have to stay consistent and stay intentional on these thoughts and ideas for it to work. And you have to understand that your words, the words you say to your athlete, they don't evaporate after you say them. And they may not listen quite like you want, but they turn into wiring, and they literally turn into new neurons and new thoughts. You're literally rebuilding your child's brain one comment at a time. Always rewiring their brain one comment at a time. It just depending on which way you're going. A negative comment will go one way, one pathway, a positive will go to another. And if they're combating them, then you're kind of staying where you are. And you can't just You can't undo 5 years of criticism with one, hey buddy, I'm proud of you no matter what. The brain doesn't work like that. It is pre-wired from that 5 years of criticism. So it's in serious need of an overhaul that's going to take months to redo, 60 plus days to do this. You have to think. So a great analogy I think about the brain, think about your child's brain as a hiking trail. The path you walk every day gets clearer and clearer and clearer. The one you ignore grows over. Your daily reactions are deciding which trail is clear. Your daily comments are either fostering that confidence trail or that anxiety trail. And you have to be very aware, very cognizant of the words you say, because that's what you're building. That's what you're doing. And it takes time and intentional activity to do that. Mental toughness is not a magic wand. It's not a magic pill. It is repetition. It is 1,000 small moments and comments where you choose to talk about effort over outcome, where you support their decisions and to support what they're doing well, and talk about curiosity over criticism and focusing on positive over negative. All of these things, they have to be something that you're very intentional about, and you have to repeat. I understand how hard this can be because, quite honestly, in order for you to do this well, you have to rewire your own brain. That is the difficult part. And I understand where you might think, well, I've been that parent. I've always been that parent, and it's going to be really hard for me to change, and I don't know if it's going to work. And that's where I think a reset conversation is so important. Acknowledge that you haven't been doing it great and you want to change it. Otherwise, they're going to look at you like you got two heads, or think that you had, an alien has, overtaken your body or something strange. So have the reset conversation. And just know that if you're thinking, oh man, I've been doing this wrong for years and I just don't think I can change, take a breath. Awareness is not the end, it's the beginning. And you have to have that recognition to start to move forward. Okay. And I just think that awareness can be scary, but it should prompt us to want to do things different. So your past mistakes don't have to be your child's future story. The same brain that wired for anxiety can wire for confidence. It just takes repetition and consistent intentional effort. So I just trust yourself, give yourself some grace, and work on it. And one of the most powerful things a parent can say is, I've been given this wrong. I've been getting this wrong. I'm going to do better. You deserve that. It's not, that's not weakness. That's leadership. That's what we want. And like, think again, I've talked about your jobs. We love a boss that does that. We love a leader that does that says, hey, I made a mistake here. Let's figure out how to get this better and let's move forward. It's what we know leadership should look like, but we're scared to do it when it comes to our kids. And again, we don't want you to flip overnight from drill sergeant to cheerleader. Your kid is going to recognize that and be like, what's going on? Is it like you change your medication, dad? Like, what's going on? Have an honest reset conversation and just talk about what you're trying to do. And hey, I want to do this a better way. Explain what's going to change, how we're going to do it, how we're going to operate around our car rides and the dinner table. We're going to be different about it. And it's not going to be perfect. Tell them it's not going to be perfect. You don't have to be, you aren't expecting a perfect kid. You don't have to be a perfect parent. You just need to be a parent that's willing to change because it's better for their kid. And it's worth it though. So I just want you to be thinking about how you're going to do this. And I know I've thrown a lot at you, so hopefully you can check it out and start to pick out what you want. It might be a lot. I would consider, think about the reset conversation. Tell your kid you're going to do something different, and then name one thing that we're going to do different. whether it's the 3 good things, or it's how you're going to praise effort, or the time of day you're going to have different conversations, and really choose a thing and say, we're going to do this together. And it doesn't have to be guesswork when we talk about what we're trying to do better for our kid, because there's so much research, there's so many ideas, this positive psychology and this neuroplasticity, it's there. We just have to be able to recognize it and start using it for you. And I've also, as I mentioned in the show notes, there is a link to have an email course sent to your email with all these ideas. It's going to be a really good reminder. You listen to this podcast, you hear some ideas, and you're like, oh, that's a good idea. You need some repetition. I've been talking about repetition. That's how we get it. So I think that signing up to my email course and then reading those emails takes this idea that you listened to today and extends it for at least another week. And you start getting these ideas. You start building your own thought process, your own wiring on how you're going to look at things different, come up with these ideas. It needs to be something on your brain to be doing this, to be working on it. So check out that email course. It's the Resilient Parents Playbook. It's the same ideas I've been talking about today, but signing up for it is going to give you, again, that repetition. It's going to have you a connection with me, and send me emails, send me thoughts. I want to help. As again, I started at the beginning of this, my goal for my business is I want to help athletes, and I want to help youth athletics and high school athletics and college athletics. I want these athletes to have more mental toughness, not because they want to win games, but because athletics are just this perfect, beautiful system for creating better humans, and we just don't do it right all the time. And I want this to be a situation, I want it to be something that helps people be better. And I've spent so much time working with the athletes, the coaches. I want to help the parents, because they are probably they've got the biggest lever. You have the biggest lever to adjust the mental toughness in your kid. And I created this so that you have a good framework of how to do it and a playbook on how to do it. And so I genuinely hope that you check it out, sign up for it, stay in contact with me, ask me questions wherever you can. I'd love to work with your athlete if that's something you want, but I love if you hear something you like and you're like, man, I'm going to start doing this, and I wish that the coaches would do this, or my school would do this, or my athlete would do this. I do all those as well. So get a hold of me, contact me, send me an email, like a comment, something, and I will do my best to help you out, because this is what I'm here. This is what I'm doing. So thank you so much for joining today, listening today. I genuinely hope you check out the course, and hopefully that you start working some of this stuff. It will work. Give it some time, give it some effort. You'll start to see a different athlete and a different you, quite honestly. So, and that's my goal. So thank you so much for listening. This has been the Mental Mettle Podcast. I'm your host, Coach Matt Thomann, and always remember to forge your metal.
Thanks for listening to the Mental Mettle Podcast. Don't forget to tune in every week for more insights and strategies to help you forge mental toughness and resilience. This podcast is brought to you by Mental Mettle Coaching, where we are driven by a passion for sharing knowledge and experience that empowers others to play, live, and grow with confidence. Our mission is to instill a resilient and spirited mindset in our clients, enabling them to confidently face adversity and actively seek new challenges for personal growth. At Mental Mettle Coaching, we offer individual coaching, group coaching, and professional development for schools and businesses. Whether you're an athlete, educator, or professional, we're here to help you unlock your potential and thrive in every area of life. Until next time, keep growing, stay resilient, and always remember to forge your metal.